It is Tuesday, September 21st. I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
The climate crisis is real, and we need to clean the environment, and this is one thing we can all do.
That is one thing being pushed by Con Edison to prioritize electric vehicles over gas-guzzling cars. My interview with Con Ed CEO Tim Cawley coming up later this hour. This is Mornings on One. The automakers are moving toward a future where all cars are electric cars. Legislative leaders at the state level and the federal level are leading the automakers in that direction. But a big obstacle in New York City is charging. In almost every other place in the country, the vision for the electric car involves plugging it in your own driveway at night. I met with Tim Cawley, the CEO of Con Ed, to talk about their efforts to get electric car power to the places where people in New York City need it. Here we are on a street in New York City. This car's parked here one day, this car's parked here another day. There's just nowhere to charge. It's a different environment.
Yeah, and really that's what this pilot is about, Pat. About 50% of New York car owners park on the street, so they don't have the convenience of a garage or the side of their home to charge up at night. So we've introduced this pilot with Flo and New York City DOT to introduce curbside charging. And as you know, climate change is a big issue. Electrification of transportation will help clean the environment, and it's a big thrust of what we're doing at Con Edison, and can make a difference in the quality of life of the city, both in terms of air quality. The noise produced by an EV is virtually none relative to a combustion engine.
So, but to get to that better place, people need to have the confidence that if they buy this car, they're not going to be stuck. That's every rookie electric car owner's fear, is that they've got an empty battery and no corner gas station to go to.
Yeah, and the term range anxiety is what is there. You know, the cost of EVs is coming down, really very close to parity for a standard combustion engine. So range anxiety is what has held people back. Currently, Pat, only about 1% of registered vehicles in New York City are EVs.
Yeah.
So a long way to go here. And this will help with the range anxiety.
So tell us, this is the first in a series of pilot chargers.
That's right. So we're going to be in 5 boroughs, 100 such chargers, and we're really going to learn from this experience. We partnered with DOT and Flo to select the locations. This is Flo's infrastructure, and effectively, these spots will be reserved for EV charging. With an app, people can charge, they plug in. In about an hour, they'll get 25 miles of range, roughly, and off they go. So they'll have the ability. This is one solution for EV owners in the city. There'll also be fast charging elsewhere, but as chargers become more prevalent and prolific in the city, people will release from that range anxiety. The prices and selection of EVs continue, and off we go.
The first time I set foot in an electric vehicle, the acceleration of these vehicles is remarkable. You're not expecting it. It is, the sort of responsiveness is incredible. The ride is smooth. They have all the bells and whistles. It is a really great experience. Pat, I am not a car guy, but it is an incredible experience. I'm sold. Yeah. So you've driven this Mach-E.
Yeah, and I drive an unmarked Mach-E is what I drive, and the cars at home, we're going to turn them over that way as well.
So where is this 5 years from now?
Incredible growth. You know, Governor Hochul signed into legislation a requirement that post-2035, no more combustion engines, only zero-emission vehicles will be sold in New York State. So that's 13 years out. That's all you'll be able to buy in New York State. It is going to ramp up incredibly, and it needs to. The climate crisis is real, and we need to clean the environment, and this is one thing we can all do. The variety is growing, the price parity is there, total cost of ownership is about even as we see today. It'll get better in the next few years. So it's something we all can do to help the environment, to calm the noise down on the roadways, and the experience is really great. It has really been clear since Hurricane Sandy that our infrastructure is not ready for climate change. Ahead of Climate Week, I met with Con Ed CEO Tim Cawley. We talked last Friday. We started that conversation by talking about a major climate vulnerability study that was done for the utility company in 2019. And that study pointed to 2 related long-term changes, one being higher temperatures, and then the other being the rising sea levels that go along with that. The study tells us that in the next 30 years, sea level could rise 1.3 feet.
Yeah.
And so that's significant, and it's accelerating, and we need to install equipment that meets that sea level where it will be.
And that can mean a facility that has been in the same place for 50 years now suddenly is vulnerable.
Yeah, and our sort of initiating event was Superstorm Sandy.
Yeah.
A third of our 3.5 million customers lost power. The crews did an incredible job restoring, but we noted that we needed to harden the system. We spent $1 billion, doing the things you would think about, raising equipment, building walls around it to prevent flooding damage. We jumped into the study and the plan after that. And so as our engineers and operators design and build out this complex system, they're planning for where weather will be. So for example, if you look backwards or today, about 4 days a year, Central Park sees 95 degrees. The study tells us in the 2030s, that will likely be 11 days, and a decade later, 23. So longer heat waves, more frequent heat waves, more extreme heat waves take a toll on our electrical equipment, and we have to plan for that.
When I look at the problems we have when there's a violent summer thunderstorm and it knocks down trees and it takes out overhead power lines, and we hear that those storms will be more frequent, I wonder why it is that we don't just get it over with and invest the money in burying those power lines, making that more reliable. Instead, we go through this cycle where you send out the trucks and you get mutual aid crews that send out the trucks, and the people in those neighborhoods get frustrated and they install generators in their backyards. Why don't we just fix this as soon as we can?
Yeah, so we've studied it and we're doing something about it now in terms, and that's the resiliency part of this. We're going to do a pilot across our regions to underground certain sections. And
you identify them as being particularly vulnerable.
That's right. And so some of the ranking would be a high density of customers that experience frequent outages because of a heavily treed region. So if you have a lot of outages and there's customer density, the bang for the buck is there. And it's really a matter of finding the right balance between what we can do and the benefits customers will receive for it.
So there are really two things happening.
That's precisely a two-pronged approach. Try to limit carbon emissions. The EV example we showed, we have battery storage. We have energy efficiency is the best tool we have. And then, notwithstanding our ability to reduce carbon emissions, we've got to get ready for the climate that's coming, and that's the resiliency that we're talking about. Undergrounding is one tool in the bag that we're exploring in earnest.